All right, making your art into prints. We're talking about taking those amazing creations and making them into something someone can hold, something real,
Well,
you know?
yeah, like sharing it with the world in a whole new way. It's pretty exciting.
For sure, but I gotta admit, it can feel overwhelming. Where do you even begin? I mean, it's not just like hitting print on a computer, right?
That's right. It's a journey. It's all about digitizing your artwork.
Okay, so turning it digital, but how do we make sure it's like high quality digital? I feel like there's gotta be more to it than just taking a picture with your phone.
You're totally right. Think about it like this. If you have a really detailed painting with like tons of texture, you can't just snap a pic of that and expect it to look as good as the real deal.
Right. You'd lose all those little details.
Exactly. So, depending on the art, you might need something more professional, like a high-resolution scan, or even working with a photographer who specializes in this kind of thing.
Okay, I'm getting it. So it's not one size fits all. How do we know which method is best for like our specific artwork?
You got to weigh the complexity of your artwork with your budget. Like a simple line drawing, that'll probably scan perfectly fine, but something with a lot of texture that
Yeah.
might need a bit more attention.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot between quality and what works for us budget-wise.
You got it. And then once you've got that awesome digital version of your art, we got to talk about resolution and file formats.
Okay, this is where I tend to get a little lost, to be honest.
Think about it like threads in a tapestry. The more threads you have, the sharper the image.
Right, that makes sense.
So in printing, we measure that sharpness in DPI, which stands for dots per inch. And for good quality prints, you want to aim for at least 300 DPI.
300 DPI, got it. What about file types? JPEG, PNG, all that stuff. What do we need to know about those?
Good question. JPEGs are like the go-to. They're usually fine. But sometimes you want a TIFF, which is a .tiff file. They're usually bigger files, but they keep all those tiny details safe and sound, especially important for complex pieces.
So, like, not ideal for just emailing back and forth, but perfect for making sure we don't lose anything important for the actual printing.
Exactly. And then there are PDFs, but we got to be careful with those, make sure they're actually ready to print. They can be a little tricky.
Okay, so we've got our artwork digitized and looking sharp. What's next in this whole printmaking adventure?
Now comes the fun part, making it even better. We get to play with the image a bit, enhance the colors, maybe adjust the brightness and contrast so it really pops. But don't worry, we're not talking about changing your artwork completely.
More like giving it that extra oof before it goes out into the world, right?
Exactly. One thing our sources mentioned is color accuracy. Screens can be kind of deceiving, so you really want to make sure the colors you see on your screen are the same ones that'll show up in the print.
Oh, good point. I've definitely had that happen before, where something looks totally different once it's printed.
Right, so calibrating your monitor is a good idea. And don't underestimate the power of small adjustments. Even just tweaking the brightness and contrast a little bit can make a huge difference.
It's like fine-tuning an instrument, making sure every note is perfect.
That's a great way to put it. And the best part, you don't need some fancy, expensive software to make those adjustments.
Really? Tell me more about that.
There are tons of free editing tools online, like GIMP. They're super user-friendly, and you can still do a lot with them.
So we can get amazing results without breaking the bank. I love it. All right, so we've got our digital artwork all set. Now we got to talk about actually making it into those real-life prints.
The main thing is choosing the right printing method. It's like picking the right tool for the job.
Yeah. But how do we choose? I mean, our sources mentioned a bunch of different options, like digital printing, screen printing, offset printing, even letterpress. It's kind of overwhelming, to be honest.
It can be, yeah. But think of it like this. Each method has its own, personality, its own pros and cons. Digital printing is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the all-rounder.
Yeah.
It's great for when you're just starting out or if you only need a small batch of prints.
So if you're not quite ready to make 100 prints just yet, digital is the way to go.
Exactly. It's super versatile and it won't break the bank. Then you've got screen printing, which has that cool kind of handcrafted look and feel.
Oh, I love screen printing. It's so unique. You can tell there's so much work that goes into it.
It's definitely more hands-on,
Mm.
especially compared to digital. And it's awesome for bold designs,
Yeah.
things with lots of color and texture.
Okay, cool. So screen printing's like the artsy one of the bunch. What about offset printing? That one seems more, I don't know, official.
It is. It's the way to go if you need a lot of prints. Think like posters or prints for a big event. It's all about efficiency and volume.
Like if you were going to sell your art prints in a store, offset printing would be the way to do it.
You got it. It's a whole different ball game than the other methods. And then there's letterpress, which is kind of like the old school vintage option.
Letterpress, that's the one with the really beautiful kind of debossed look, right?
Yep, that's the one. It uses these engraved plates to press the ink onto the paper, which gives it that really unique texture.
Oh, wow, I can imagine. That's got to be even more hands-on than screen printing.
It is definitely more specialized. But man, the results can be stunning, especially for things like art prints or high-end invitations. It adds a touch of class, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now we know how we're printing, but what are we printing on? Our sources mentioned all these different types of paper, too.
Right. Choosing the right paper is just as important as choosing the right printing method.
It's like framing a masterpiece, right? You don't want to put a Picasso in a cheap plastic frame.
Exactly. A good frame enhances the art, just like the right paper can make your print really sing. There's glossy photo paper, which is always a classic.
Classic for a reason, right?
Yeah. And then there's matte paper, which is a bit more subtle. It's all about personal preference, really.
Our sources also mentioned canvas. That one always feels kind of fancy.
It does. It gives
Yeah.
your print that really cool gallery-worthy vibe.
Yeah.
And then you've got some more unique options, like metallic paper. It's got this really subtle sheen to it, almost like, well, metal. It can look really awesome with certain types of artwork, especially photography.
Oh, I can imagine it'd be perfect for like cityscapes or anything with lights and reflections. This is making me want to experiment with all sorts of different papers.
Me too. And that's the beauty of it, right? There's so much room to play around and find what works best for your art.
Okay, so we've talked about all the tech stuff, right? Digitizing, editing, the different printing methods, picking the right paper. But now what? How do we actually find someone to print our art?
That's the last piece of the puzzle, finding the right print vendor. And it's important you're trusting them with your art, your vision.
It's like a partnership, right?
Exactly. So you got to do your research, make sure they're a good fit.
What do you mean, like a good fit? How do we even start figuring that out?
Well, first, you got to think about what's important to you. Like, are you all about sustainability? Then you might want a vendor who uses recycled paper and eco-friendly inks.
Makes sense. So, like, your values have to align.
Yeah. Or maybe you're really focused on getting those super high-quality gallery-level prints. Then you'd look for a vendor who specializes in that, one who uses those fancy inks and papers.
So it's not just about finding someone who can print. It's about finding someone who understands what you want your prints to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't be shy about asking questions. Our sources all said that was super important. Like, find out what kind of experience they have. Have they printed stuff similar to your work before?
Right. You wouldn't hire a wedding photographer to shoot a concert.
Exactly. You want someone who gets it.
Yeah.
And don't forget about the practical stuff, like how much it'll cost and how long it'll take.
Oh, right, because you don't want any surprises there.
Nope. And here's a good tip. Ask for samples.
Oh, yeah, that's smart. Like a test run.
Yeah, exactly. See if you like the quality of their work before you commit to a whole bunch of prints.
This is all such good advice. I feel like I'm finally ready to take the plunge. So much good info here.
Right. And the most important thing is just to go for it. Don't be afraid to experiment, to try new things, and find what works best for you and your art. There are so many possibilities out there.
That's what I love about this whole world of printmaking. It's like you can take your art and share it with the world in a whole new way. It's exciting.
Totally. And it's way less scary once you know the basics. So go out there, make some awesome prints, and show the world what you've got.
That's a wrap on today's deep dive, everyone. Hopefully you feel as ready as I do to start making some art prints. Until next time.